Let's talk about some of these stories that are in the news on this Christmas Eve, joined by Rebecca Walser, Dan Geltrude, and Scott Shellady. The market's been moving between gains and losses, and again, it will close in less than an hour with an early trading session. No offense to Scott, who always gets the Best Dressed award, but today it actually goes to Rebecca, who is there for the season. So I'm going to start with you on the. It's good to see all three of you on the stimulus stalemate that David Spunt was talking about. Your thoughts on what's really going on here? And it's anybody's guess, by the way, what the president is up to on his way out, but he's shaking things up yet again, and I'm not sure how it ends up. Maybe it seems like the market is not too worried about it, probably assuming that if anything we get the stimulus, maybe it's just delayed. But for regular people, small businesses and the like, they don't really want another delay. What do you think's going on here?
Yeah, Connell, this is politics at its best. I don't think that people were expecting a lot of people to digest and really analyze what was in this bill. They called it COVID relief, right? But it was such a pathetic, direct payment to Americans, $600, whereas before it was $1,200. That was called not enough. Now the $600 is supposed to be generous. And when you start looking at all of the foreign aid that is going out, I think that's the problem, that people are saying no. And I don't think that they were literally expecting people to be paying attention to what all is happening, because you have fiscal conservatives, but you also have people on the other side that are saying this is really ridiculous and it shouldn't stand. And Democrats seem to be willing to go ahead and go along with President Trump and raise that to $2,000. Now we've got Republicans not ready to do that. So it's really confusing. American people are confused. We need more stimulus. We need it for Americans first. We don't need to save the world. We don't need to be rebuilding ships, in other countries right now when our economy is closed. And so that's really what's happening.
Okay, let me just stop you for 1 second, and I'll bring Dan in on that for a moment, because I just want to say something on the foreign aid. That's always popular to say, we want to take care of ourselves before other countries and all the rest. Here's the problem with that in this case, and this is just the way it is, Dan. That money was requested by the Trump State Department. U.S. aid is run by the State Department. So the president's own Secretary of State, the president himself, they, were supporters of that. So the president's essentially saying, I don't want the stuff I asked for. So to me, the foreign aid argument doesn't make much sense. I understand it's popular and people latch on to it. And the stimulus is interesting because, again, the president had a chance to negotiate this. Steve Mnuchin, his own Treasury Secretary, was involved in the negotiations, but now is trying to change it after it's already been passed by both houses of Congress. What do you think of what's happening and how it might end up?
You just hit the nail on the head related to you have Mitch McConnell and Steve Mnuchin, who are essentially negotiating on behalf of the president. As far as everyone knew, President Trump was made aware of exactly where the negotiations were going. So to have a deal struck in Congress, and then the president turns around and says, you know what, that's got to go back because the bill's a disgrace. It should be $2,000 a person instead of $600, and there's too much waste. The president is not wrong by saying we should up it to $2,000 and we should get the waste out of the bill. The problem becomes is that he has put Republicans in the House and in the Senate in a really difficult position now because these deals don't happen so quickly. It's a long and arduous process, and to have to start over again is going to cause a lot of pain. And perhaps, Connell, let me just make this final point. The most important thing at play is what goes on in Georgia with that Senate race. Yeah. So what's happening here in Congress, how that plays out for the Georgia election is probably the most consequential thing of all of this.
Right, and that's what's got a number of Republicans on Capitol Hill kind of worked up about all of this. As I bring Scott in, I want to bring up another story because we're talking about deals that get done or not or don't get done. And Scott, feel free to weigh in on what we've just been talking about as well. But, I know you've spent a considerable amount of time in London, so I do want to mention the news this morning about we finally have this trade agreement, UK-EU, on Brexit. So that gets done before the end of the year. There's one less thing to worry about. So your thoughts on that in terms of what is accomplished, what the future is for the UK, what it means for us, and also what we were just talking about, Scott.
Well, you know what it does? It's a great segue. It ties in together both countries have a horrible swamp. That was voted on in 2016, and now they're just getting around, and they're going to have slap everybody on the back and give them an attaboy for getting something done in 4 or 5 years' time. It's ridiculous. Just as this bill is ridiculous. You know what? You want to stimulate the economy and stimulate Americans? Open up the economy. What they've done is they've shut you down, bankrupted you, locked you up, and then want to give $600 to you and billions of dollars abroad. It's an absolute disgrace. These people have lost their minds, or they're so out of touch. I mean, my Twitter feed and my Facebook feed, I feel bad for these people. They can't work, and the government's going to throw. You know, if you've ever been in been a waitress or a waiter, and you get a zero tip, you think to yourself, well, maybe they forgot or whatever. You make an excuse. But when somebody leaves you a $1 tip on a $200 bill, they're sending a message. $600 sends a message. It's disrespectful. Some people would say, hey, why don't you even get anything? So you could tell I'm visibly angry about the fact that this is not going to cut it. They shut you down. They put you out of business. They bankrupted you, and they locked you up. And this is what you get? International stimulus? It doesn't make sense. I don't know where we are as a country where this was even thought to be going through, or at least attracting some sort of attention.
I got everybody worked up, and then I have to end the segment by saying Merry Christmas. But I mean, it's just the world we live in at this point. But seriously, guys, thanks for starting us off today. They're important issues, though, all of them. So Merry Christmas to all three of you. And